Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. This webinar is on TAEDES401 or 401A, Design and Develop Learning Programs. This presentation is applicable to the Cert 4 car driving instructor, the Cert 4 truck instructor, and also the TAE qualification. Regardless of what course you are studying, this information should be poignant to you. If you are a TAE student who is not coming from a driver training background, anytime during this presentation you hear me using a driver training reference as an example, I don't think it'll be too much of a stretch for you to turn off my voice for a second, think about it from your application and apply the message that I'm giving you at that stage, and I think you'll still come out with great outcomes. Welcome to the first of our new Prezi Next. This is a great new presenting program. We've been using Prezi for quite some time now, and Prezi have moved from their Prezi Classic to the Prezi Next. I only talk about this because everyone looking at this is going to be a trainer. If you're going to be a trainer, you're going to be probably using training and presenting materials, and I would definitely say put Prezi and Prezi Next on your shopping list as potential programs to use beyond PowerPoint or Keynote. Let's get started. So welcome to TAEDES401 or 401A, Design and Develop Learning Programs. Before we start with the technical information of this subject, I'd just like to explain it to you in simpler terms. And that's what this first presentation is mainly about, taking this unit, Design and Develop Learning Programs, and having a bit of a more basic, more straightforward look at it before we look at it in a more technical sense in the second presentation. So first up, we're going to ask ourselves, if this unit of competence is called Design and Develop Learning Programs, then I guess the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, well, what is a learning program? So simply put, to design and develop a learning program or a training program, because they're interchangeable, you'll hear some people call them learning programs. You'll hear other people, and other times even me, speaking of them as a training program. It's to make or create a program that teaches individuals or groups of students anything you can imagine. This program could last an hour, a day, weeks, or even years. And how long your program lasts is governed by several factors, including what needs to be trained, who needs to be trained, and how will you train it. In actual fact, these three factors can be broken up into a whole heap of sub texts or sub folders, and we'll break them up and go through those and explore those different elements to those three main key points as we go through, especially the following presentation. But when you think about it, a learning program is just any scenario where you, a trainer, are going to guide or facilitate someone's education through a learning or training program. Think about it. A learner driver that learns how to reverse park a car or truck during a driving lesson has actually participated in one individual mini learning program. The driver trainer that conducted that lesson has actually created a mini learning program. If we were now to extend that example to a learner driver who participates in driving lessons from the age of 16 through to 18, or even a heavy vehicle learner driver who's participating in a 3-day course to obtain their semi-truck license. Regardless of the situation, either of those learners have actually now participated in quite an extensive learning program, and that driver trainer will have delivered a much more complex learning or facilitation of education, or a much more complex training program. And whether that was over 2 or 3 years or over 3 days, they have formulated and put together that program. And hopefully that program, say for instance, they were, for instance, for a driver trainer, if they were teaching someone over an extended period of time, it's probably covered road law, roadcraft, vehicle control. For our TAE students, you think about anything that you're going to teach a student potentially over 12 months. It could look at, depending on your particular job role, it might be teaching them around their legal requirements in performing that job role, a background of the industry, all the different facets and factors that would make up that job that you're training them to do, moving into getting them to do that job successfully. So whether we have something that lasts a day, a week, or a month, so to speak. They are training programs, and all those different components will be something that you can either put together formally or informally. So why do people train? People train for lots of different reasons. And here's a short list of the main reasons. As you read through the different categories, I want you to ask yourself which category would actually apply to you. And if you happen to be a car or heavy vehicle trainer or instructor, I want you to, as I read these through these dot points, ask yourself, well, what category here would actually fit into the role of a driver trainer? So people tend to train for 2 or 4, use new equipment. So that would definitely be applicable to the car or truck trainers. Driving a new class of vehicle or getting a license would certainly be that. For a TAE student, if you are especially someone who's moving into teaching trades or with even in an office sector or within a manufacturing sector, there quite often could be equipment involved in that job, and you'll be training those people into being able to use that equipment competently and properly and safely. People train for job expansion, and that can be within a company, personal pursuits like hobbies, career advancement, and that could be a reason for quite a few people running through the TAE course, upgrade current job skills, or even a career change. So again, I would imagine that for a lot of our car driving instructors or even our heavy vehicle driver trainers, they're wanting to upgrade their current job skills, maybe get a career change within their workplace, or even completely change out of what they've done into a whole new career of training. And that would be applicable 100%. By successfully completing this unit, you'll have developed the skills and knowledge to enable you to hold a conversation with potential clients that enables you to identify and work out what they want, how much they want to spend, how long you have to deliver the training, and the location of the training. And that's really important. And I guess what this slide about opportunities, what are the opportunities that come from successfully completing this unit of competence as a part of your course, is that as someone who goes ahead and delivers programs, but more importantly for us, actually create, design and develop programs, it'll be of little worth to you if you have all these wonderful ideas of different training programs that you want to deliver to industry or to clients, or for years you've had these ideas of these great courses you think the public would love. But unless you're able to, and especially from a commercial point of view, if you're offering your services as someone who designs and develops learning programs, if you have an inability to really work out what a potential client wants, understand their budget, and understand your time restrictions or your time frames, and understand where that training is going to take place, then you're going to find it very, very hard to ever create something that someone's going to be prepared to maybe not only buy off you, but actually pay for you to come and deliver. So these are really important steps, and a part of your skill set in becoming an individual who can design and develop learning programs is creating programs that your clients want. And I know that Alex and I pride ourselves on the name of our business being Intelligent Training Solutions. It's not something that we thought was a particularly catchy phrase or anything like that. It was just in the space that we seem to be constantly living in as trainers. So as we'd gone through our training qualifications and we're working in industry, we kept on finding that people above us, so to speak, were coming to us to asking us to design and develop courses and programs. And we identified, I guess, early on that we were good at that, and we were good at listening to what they wanted, understanding the needs of the industry and those individuals, and coming up with really intelligent training solutions. So we went from being known as Drive National Training into Intelligent Training Solutions, and I know that's something that we hold to our core to this very day. And I think it's reflected in when you look at the unit, the courses and the qualifications that we offer within our small RTO. a lot of those courses are a result of industry coming to us saying, hey, this is a training need we have, and we would like you to go away and design and develop a learning program. And it really is awesome. As awesome as teaching is, you'll get as big a kick from creating programs, creating courses, and then seeing those being applied and watching people successfully enroll into your course, undertake the learning that you have designed, and coming out better, smarter people as a result of your program. It is, again, a wonderful, you get a wonderful feeling from that, and it certainly will help you have job satisfaction, without a doubt. So this means you could give your client a few different choices on how the course will run and look. And that's important. Sometimes being able to generate options, as it says here, this will enable you to generate options to determine learning program designs. That's important because sometimes clients will have a fair idea what they want, but exactly what they want, they won't even know that until you start to present them with some sort of options so they can further develop their thinking on the matter. Sometimes you'll have clients come to you and say, we have a very, very clear view, or they have experience in providing training for their staff or their students or whatever the case may be. And they'll ask you to come in and you'll be virtually just trying to match what they're used to with very small options. And then other times you'll have people that'll say, look, this is what we know we need, but how we get there, we're not sure. And it'll become quite a bit of an open process where you'll generate some options. And as you keep on going to them, offering them and enlightening them and educating them on how you're going to do it, that'll actually enable them to grow in their thought processes. And it's quite interesting that it's sometimes, though, even through that process, your actual clients will say to you, when I first envisaged, or we knew that we needed this training to be done for our staff or students or whatever the case may be, we never really thought at the end, this is what we would end up with. But we're so happy with that, and we're so thankful that you took us along that process, that as you designed and developed this learning program, you kept us in the loop, you kept on explaining the benefits associated with the different options, and that allowed us to get a better understanding. So therefore, we can have not only a better understanding of what we expect from it, but we can have greater expectations from our staff and the results of that training. And that really helps, because that helps you to present the value for dollar associated to any training program that you have created. And that's important, because any company that engages or wants to spend money on training, you're going to need to be able to show them where the return on investment is, where their dollar worth is coming from by undertaking any course that you've designed and developed and their students or staff are going to partake in. Again, under the opportunities banner, you're going to learn how to outline the content and structure of the learning programs. So as I guess I said a moment ago, this means you can document and discuss with your clients how the course will run, how you plan to deliver it, and what will be required by the students. Again, like I said, by providing clarity, you allow them to quantify and measure. And if you can do that, then they can attain a dollar value to it. And it's so important, because if you can't observe something, you can't measure it. And if you can't measure something, then you can't apply a value to it. And that's so important, that as you go through and design programs or any of your training, whether it's informal or formal, you always need to remember that your training needs to be observable so your clients can measure it. Because when they can measure it, or even if we say it's not even observable, even if we say it's just measurable, your training needs to be measurable, because then your clients can quantify it and put a dollar value to it. And with that dollar value, they understand not just a dollar value, but a value to it. They then will get that sense of satisfaction that they're after and need to be able to justify the costs associated with it. So example here, a business client asks you to teach their staff how to drive legally and safely. You explain to your client that you want to teach their staff road law and safe driving using the Hendon system of vehicle control. You tell your client that you'll need 3 days for the program, 1 day in the classroom for theory training, and 2 days in the vehicle for practical training. And you'll assess their staff at the end of the 3rd day. So that's a classic case of being able to outline the content and the structure of a learning program. You're telling them that you want them for 3 days. You're going to teach them on these particular topics. You're going to have 1 day with them in the classroom, 2 days out there in the vehicle, and at the end of the 3rd day, you're actually going to assess them and make them accountable for the learning process that they've gone through, and have something to be able to report back to them, the paying client, on the effectiveness of the training, which obviously comes then to the next highlighted point under opportunities. And you'll also learn through this unit of competence how to review your learning program's effectiveness. This means that after you've conducted your training, you can ask the students and client for feedback and reflect on the course yourself. This should allow you to learn how to improve the course for the future. Continuous improvement and quantifying how your course has gone, not just from your own self-reflection, so your own performance, but also, importantly, getting feedback from your students and your clients. All that allows you to gather that information, quantify it, and then move forward and make it better for next time. And that's important because the thought of creating a course once and leaving it at that would only lead to a disastrous business result. You always need to be adapting and changing because workforces, qualifications, and learning programs need to keep up to date with those forces and still provide relevance. The next major thing would be to identify the basis for the learning program, such as units of competence or other benchmarks that best meet these needs. So what we're talking about there is that in particular for the vehicle driver trainers or instructors that are undertaking this unit of competence, you may not design a whole lot of courses just based on your driver trainer qualification that deals with a benchmark that is associated with a qualification, and all you guys are individually doing units of competence. So you may not design too many courses that have units of competence or formal qualifications attached. However, you may do a lot of training that has another type of benchmark. And a benchmark is how well we do something or how well we need to do something. It's what we measure against. So obviously, if you can imagine, and even though I've got examples here and I will go through those examples, but you can imagine that if you were to train people for the Ford Motor Company, and the Ford Motor Company has a course known as the company car driver for Ford, you would have to teach them to meet the standards in that policy. So Ford has a policy on how good they want their employees to drive their company cars, and that booklet or that policy would become your benchmark that you would measure your training off, or make sure that your training covers. The examples I've got written down here is that a benchmark is the Vic Roads drive test criteria. If you're interstate and training, that could be the drive test criteria pertaining to New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia, Tasmania, or even the Northern Territory. So obviously each state has their own set of standards in regards to licensure, and even for the heavy vehicles, and you would be that document that is their drive test criteria. That would be your benchmark. Here in Victoria, we have the Vic Roads drive test criteria as pictured on the right-hand side there. So as it says here, back from the top, an example, a benchmark is the Vic Roads drive test criteria. A learner driver must drive to the standards set out in the Vic Roads drive test booklet. Your learner drives around the test route. The tester measures what your learner does correctly against what is written in the benchmark booklet. And like it says there, each state will have their own particular criteria. So if you were designing, and I hate the thought that you would be a driver trainer that only teaches people to pass a test, but in the case that you are going to teach people to just pass a test, then your benchmark, the criteria to which you would make sure that all your training ticks off the boxes correctly will be that booklet, the Vic Roads drive test criteria, April 2012. Another benchmark, for example, is this particular unit of competence, TAEDES401 or TAEDES401A. It's a unit of competence for the Cert 4 car and heavy vehicle driving instructor course, and it's another core unit as a part of the TAE qualification. This unit or subject is a nationally recognised benchmark. It is what the various state governments and national government of Australia has agreed to recognise as the required standard for a driving instructor capable of designing and developing a learning program. The word standard for this situation means how good something must be done by a student to demonstrate competence, or even in a more simpler term, pass. So our benchmark, when the Australian governments got together and they said, well, we think driving instructors, not only do driving instructors need to be know how to formulate and put together a driving lesson, we actually want them as a part of their qualification to have an ability to put together a safe driving course, or some sort of course that lasts more than an hour, or even maybe more than a day. And even though a learning program or a training program can be as little as that, when we really look at this unit of competence in particular, we're really talking about a program that probably lasts several days. And when they said, well, what kind of benchmark? How do we teach driving instructors how to create learning programs to a point where we can put it on their certificate as saying that, yes, this person is qualified and has the right amount of knowledge, knowing how to put together a learning program? This is the unit of competence they chose, TAEDES401, design and develop learning programs. And that's important to understand that. This is the official benchmark that once you complete this will say, hey, you know what? I am good enough to put together a course, not just a single driving lesson, or not just a single session for personal training, or whatever the case may be. So whether you're doing a TAE for another industry altogether, you think about the training that's associated with your industry. This is, again, your benchmark that says that you're more than capable of teaching someone for half an hour, but in actual fact, you could get a group of people in a classroom or an individual and be able to teach them a complex subject over a period of time. Again, the opportunities from finishing this unit of competence is to create a program that is clearly mapped to the benchmarks. This means it'll be easy to identify what you were teaching. What you were teaching actually matches the benchmark material. An example, that everything you teach a client for reverse parking is covered in the Vic Roads Drive Test Criteria book. And that's important, that when you create a learning program and you're saying that it's going to cover off, or it's going to teach people to a particular standard or benchmark, that you learn how to, what we call map that information. So you learn how to say, well, this is what the benchmark requires. And when I look at what I'm putting together as a learning program, what I'm going to teach on the first day, what I'm going to teach on the second day, what I'm going to teach on the third day, it's easily identifiable in reading your documents, and we're going to give you the documents as a part of the assessment, that you're able to easily identify that. So anyone who becomes your potential client in the future can look at those documents and say, yep, I understand here, Cameron. I can understand that here's the benchmarks. I understand what the benchmark is. I look at your material telling me how you're going to run this course, and I can clearly see how you're going to cover off all the important points. They've been mapped. There is an official version of mapping, which is covered in the TAE qualification, but we don't tend to officially map as a part of the driver training courses. Next important point is to be structured and sequenced to maximize learning. So this means that you're going to learn how to, when creating your learning program or training program, when you're designing and developing your learning program, that you understand how to make a program that flows logically and is structured in a beneficial way to maximize learning, that a student going through your program wouldn't be stagnated, wouldn't get lost as a part of the process, or wouldn't be held back or frustrated by it, and that it would have a nice educational flow to it. So therefore, that people going through that course can end up leaving that course the best version of themselves, pertaining back to the qualification. So this, as it says here, this could mean that your course has a timetable or agreed delivery plan. Well, that's the education flow naturally from one subject to another. It could mean the way you put together theory into practical and practical into theory. It might mean that in your programs every morning you teach something by theory and then you go out in the afternoon and do it practically. It might mean that you do 2 theory days followed by 2 practical days, whatever the case may be. But as long as, in the following point, it's logical and innovative to engage the learner group, which means that your program would be interesting and make sense. Those two should come together really nicely, that it's structured and sequenced and logical and innovative. Include delivery methods which enhance flexibility, This means that your course can be flexible, just like our blended delivery course. If you think about it, whether you're a TAE student or especially if you're studying one of our driver trainer qualifications, if you think about it as a blended delivery course, not all the students have to attend classes on the same day. Flexibility doesn't just mean within a timetabling situation. It can mean a lot more. It can mean that, again, if you look at the blended delivery course, we offer face-to-face training for theory. We offer face-to-face training in vehicle. We have webinars like this done live with students online. We also record those webinars, or we just record closed webinars that you can log into and listen and learn. We have lots of presentations with no voiceovers, and we also have presentations that have voiceovers. And sometimes within those class-based presentations, we've actually added video material and used different technology and programs to kind of, as we like to say, pack up the classroom and place it on the student portal for you to access it and learn from it no differently to you attending class each day across a period of time. We need to make sure that you identify resources needed to deliver and assess the training. So this means that your learning plan template, which we're going to supply you with and is clearly run through during the assessment video walkthrough. A template would clearly tell your client and staff what books, presentations, videos, assessment tools, or papers they need to deliver the course correctly to the students. And that's important. So even though you may design and develop a program that you will only ever train and teach, it's important that you document what's needed, what resources are needed to teach that course effectively, so you never forget what's required. But likewise, if you're a member of a team or a training company where there's interchangeable trainers, you need this written down so regardless of who's training it, they always turn up with the right equipment and the right resources. And especially too, you may be someone who particularly teaches a subject on your own, but in the event that you are sick, you could ring work and say, "Hey guys, sorry, can't come in today. However, today I'm teaching this subject. Just tell Bill, the other trainer, to grab my templates, my learning plan template. It'll clearly tell him what resources he needs, what presentations he's going to use, what videos that he may need to, access via YouTube or whatever the case may be. And if they're conducting assessments and stuff like that, what actual assessment papers are required." And obviously that is a really important quality assurance measure for your training, that regardless of who teaches that particular subject on any given day, your students will always receive the same level of quality training. And that's so paramount. And hence why, as a part of this unit of competence, you'll design 2 courses using the learning plan templates that we're going to provide you with. And you'll see that those learning plan templates cover everything from what your benchmarks are going to be, what your timetable is going to be, and more importantly, where you list the resources required to deliver that training. Because without that quality assurance, without you ever writing down anywhere what is required to deliver that course, even yourself, who's written that program, will surely at some stage forget something. So finally, as I said, imagine having the capability to speak with potential business clients, knowing you can design and develop an actual learning program. It is achievable. You are going to be able to do this, and it can make your professional life so much more successful. And it really is true. Having an ability, even as a driving instructor, having an ability to formally put together a learning program that goes beyond just teaching people how to drive safely on a one-to-one basis, one lesson at a time, can really open up so many more worlds for you. And for those doing the TAE qualifications with us, you're here already. And as you can imagine, you becoming a qualified trainer, industry trainer, whether you're teaching for a TAFE or for a business or for an RTO like ours, having an ability to put together a course and see students, like I said, partake in that and come out smarter, better individuals is so rewarding, and it will make for a much more successful career.
Hi, this is Alex from ITS. Thanks for watching. You've hit that point where we recommend that you pause this video, stretch your legs, and grab yourself a coffee. This video presentation will resume in about 5 seconds, so hit that pause button now.
So the next bubble topic is we're going to have a very quick, brief overview of the assessment. Like I said, more importantly, there is a video for this assessment that you can watch, which will explain the assessment in great details. But I'm just going to provide you with a quick assessment overview. So as we go through not just the information that is still in this presentation, but when you get to the next one, having just a bit of an overview of the assessment in the background should help you decipher information and put it in a logical place. So first up, we'll have a quick look, I think, at the requirements. So to demonstrate competency in this unit, you must be able to design a range of learning programs to meet different learner needs and learning context. For our driving instructor students, our programs will definitely concentrate on our area of expertise, which is driver training. For our TAE students, if you're not from a driver training background, your programs will definitely be associated with your area of expertise or previous qualifications or current work experience. Assessment overview. Your evidence must include preparing and developing a minimum of 2 learning programs. These must contain different program designs to reflect particular needs, contexts, and timelines. At least one of the learning programs must be based on a unit of competency from an endorsed training package or units of competence. As it says here, don't panic. It sounds complicated, but I assure you it isn't. And we have an assessment video, like I said, that will explain each step to you. And we actually provide everything for you to get the job done. So we'll provide you with potential clients and their scenarios. And even if you're a TAE subject, a TAE student coming from a different background than driver training or transport and logistics industry, we will help you create the mock client with their mock training needs. So you can apply what you're learning through this, what you'll end up learning through this unit of competence in our training, and you'll be able to apply it and fill out the templates accordingly. But everything you need to be able to successfully complete this, we'll support you with it. We give you the information, and then that allows you to put it together, formulate what's required, and produce as it says here, to get the job done, really. It's as simple as that. So the process, and as it says here, remember, we're here every step of the way to help you. First of all, you're going to go through and read the learning material and presentations and listen to our webinars like you are right now. You will watch the assessment video. You'll complete the assessment, including the 2 templates. And of course, again, through these processes, remember that we are here every step of the way, so you can get in contact with us for assistance, and then hand in the assessment at the end. It's a pretty sort of easy 4-step process. Read and learn, watch the video, complete the assessment, hand it in. Simple as that. Alrighty, so the next part we're going to move on to now is learning programs defined. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about what a learning program is. That's made up of 3 main subjects: getting started, learning program defined part 1, and learning program defined part 2. So as it says here, before you begin to design and develop a learning program, ask yourself, what do you believe would make for an effective learning program? Teaching people how to drive safely and efficiently whilst preparing for their drive test. If you're a TAE student, not from the driver training program, then I want you to ask yourself, what do you believe it would take to teach a particular part of your job role or your job function? It's a good time, as it says here, to take the time out to reflect on why you've decided to maybe become a trainer, whether it's a driver trainer or a TAE trainer, and what has particularly brought about that interest, and that interest of the idea, or not the interest of it, but the idea that, you know what, me teaching others facilitating an education of others so they can become better people or be competent or move on into different opportunities within their workspaces and places or industries, why has that piqued your interest? And it's good to keep that and have that in the background as you go through and start to design and develop your own learning programs, because that's a good space to start from. And if that's a part of the driving force, those little internal reasons why you've liked the idea of becoming a trainer, I think that'll help you produce the best programs you can. By formulating those thoughts, you'll make it easier to complete this subject. Use those thoughts as a roadmap. However, always remember to be flexible in your approach. And more importantly, I love this little sentence here. Make a mental note now of what you believe will make for an interesting driver training program or similar program for our TAE students, and then compare it with what you come up with at the end of this qualification or the end of this subject. And as it says there in red, most importantly, enjoy the journey. If you can get into it, if you can really take on this whole idea of creating a learning program based on some of the scenarios we offer you, you're certainly going to enjoy it. You're going to learn a hell of a lot from it, and it will prepare you, if not for the early parts of your job role, especially for the driver trainers, but certainly in areas that you can go on and further your career. And for so many driving instructors that move up through the driver training ranks, so to speak, to open up their areas of employment, then you'll actually be back here after doing the driver trainer course. You'll most likely be back here with us doing a TAE qualification to open up those boundaries. Learning program defined part 1. So before I gave you a simple version of what this subject is all about, below here is a more technical description. A learning program provides the basis for a cohesive and integrated learning process by outlining the processes of learning and assessment, and it could be part of a bigger delivery and assessment strategy. Right, so that's the official version of what a learning program is. It's to provide the basis for a cohesive and integrated learning process. And it goes about outlining what those processes will be, and that not only covers the learning process, but also really the assessment process. The great thing is using our the templates and that we give you ticks all these boxes automatically, really. It's great. It puts all of this complexity into a logical step-by-step basis. You'll be able to work through those steps quite easily, and you come out the other end someone who's able to do exactly what that blue writing is saying. So a learning program should identify its purpose. So this means what's it all about. And as a part of the assessment, you'll notice that on the templates, the first thing it pretty much asks you is who you are. The next bit is what's the purpose of the learning program? And it could be something like, to teach a group of young drivers how to drive safely, according to road rules, in preparation for getting their license. It could mean that the purpose of the program is to teach a group of new employees of KC manufacturing, learning how to safely and efficiently use the metal bending machine according to the workplace and industry standards. So the purpose of the program is just, what's it all about? Why have you created this? What's the purpose of it? What's it going to achieve? It should also identify the target group, their needs and characteristics. So this, again, as it says here, this means who are your students? What is their employment, educational, personal background? What are their strengths and weaknesses? And that's so important, because unless you understand who your students are, how on earth could you create a course that will get them to their goals? You could have the greatest course in your mind planned, but if it's either too easy or too hard for the students that you're going to apply it to, it's going to fail. So understanding your students, their needs and their characteristics. When we say characteristics, we're not sort of talking about their personality types. Their characteristics are exactly that, really, what their employment background is, what their educational background is, what their personal background is. It goes a long way in helping you to design a course that will be effective. Again, the blue writing, the bits that are important, defining what a learning program is, the outcomes to be achieved, such as the units of competency or other benchmarks. So this means what is to come from the training. Are they getting a certificate, a license, a promotion? Is the benchmark the Vic Roads drive test criteria or the New South Wales drive test criteria? Is it a unit of competence? Is it is it TLIF 1001A, which I think is follow OH&S procedures, or is it TLIC 3036A or 3036, apply safe car driving behaviours? So whatever your benchmark is, it needs to be written down. And again, the great thing is our templates, it's just a question on the template that you fill out. The learning and assessment activities, including the required resources, any allowable adjustments. So again, what does that statement mean? It means that what are the students going to learn? What are you going to use to teach the program? How are you going to prove that the students have actually learned something or anything? And what you have to do to make sure that it's fair for everyone. So allowable adjustments tends to talk about how you might change the language in an assessment, or you may, say, for instance, have a theory test, but then you find out that not everyone is literate. So you choose to allow some of those students to complete the assessment not by writing the answers, by actually telling you the answers. So oral questioning and answers is a very common allowable adjustment on a lot of assessments. Again, if you're testing the knowledge base of someone learning how to drive a car safely, their ability to write down answers is not really important. Their ability to prove to you that they understand what it takes to be a safe driver is what's important. So whether they do that by telling you that after you've read the question to them, or whether they tell you that by writing down the answer, it doesn't really make a difference, as long as you can prove that that person understands that. And that's what allowable adjustments tend to be about. What can you do within your learning, and especially the assessment more than anything, to make your training and your assessments accessible to everyone and not treat anyone unfairly. The public, government, and training providers want for writing their courses. So units of competence and training packages tell us what the students need to achieve as a result of attending your course. However, how you teach it and assess it is completely up to you. And that's important. Quite often, as it says there, the public, government, and training providers don't want courses to all be the same. And especially in our area, and those that are doing the TAE qualification, when we get a so-called unit of competence, which is a benchmark, they don't tell us what a student, they don't tell us how we're going to teach the student what they require to learn and prove that they understand or are able to do. They pretty much tell us what the outcomes are. And again, I don't want to confuse our driver trainers too much here, but when you get a unit of competence, which is a benchmark, and you are going to use at least 1 or 2 units of competence through the assessment process, what you will notice when you read this unit of competence, it's going to say to you that as a result of your training, the students should be able to do these things. So how you work out to design a course that gets them to do that, that's the tricky bit, but that's the qualification. And when the government writes courses made up of subjects, which are known as units of competence, in those units of competence, they don't tell us how to teach students. They tell us what they want the students to know. They tell us what they want the students to understand, how they need to do certain things, but how you get them there, that's the bit up to you. And that's the wonderful thing about designing and developing a learning program. And that's why when you study with us, we say that's the ITS advantage, that we're good at this stuff, and that we don't teach generic materials. We know that in a lot of other places, there's generic materials associated with this qualification. Pretty bland and boring, and hopefully you find what we have offered a little bit more interesting and a little bit more varied. So as a trainer, you'll need to design or source. Now, when we say source, that means you go out and buy something. Because as it says here, remember, some learning programs are for sale. And we do, as you guys know, as a part of what we do here at ITS, We do sell learning and assessment materials to other RTOs. But as it says here, so as a trainer, you'll need to design or source, remember some learning programs over sale, the learning program itself. But you have the freedom to design whatever is required to deliver the course outcomes while meeting the needs of your clients and obviously making sure you map back, like I said, map back to the requirements of your benchmark. So you design, you've got that little bit of a balancing act. You've got the freedom to design whatever you want, but you need to make sure that one, it's going to make your clients happy, it allows for who they are, and more importantly, it meets the benchmarks, which could be a unit of competence, your license, your VicRoads drive test criteria, or whatever the case may be. So in your job role as a driver trainer, you may find yourself designing learning programs in two different fields. Recognized formal training qualifications. So if you're working for us, you've gone through, you've done your driver trainer qualification, you've gone through and done your TAE qualification, and now you're working for us, teaching new driving instructors. That'll be recognized formal training because as a result of you training those students in vehicle, they're going to successfully complete, say for the moment, TLIC 3036, apply safe car driving behaviours, and at least also TLIM 4001 or 4001A, develop safe car driving behaviours and others. And then you could also be doing, on the flip side of qualification training, you could be doing non-recognised training, which is that classic case of what you teach a learner driver, whether it's a heavy vehicle learner driver or the in-vehicle component of heavy vehicle training, even though some of that is actually recognised, but especially for a car driving instructor, more importantly, getting their license, not so much a heavy vehicle because they have got units of competence attached to their training, but for a car driving instructor, all that training you're putting together, that's known as non-recognised training. Yes, it leads to a license, but it certainly doesn't lead to a qualification or a statement of attainment. So most of your work will probably be designing learning programs for individual learners, drivers, adhering to what you have learned on this course, as well as the VicRoads drive test criteria. This may be an informal process. During each driving lesson, you concentrate on what it will take for your client to drive safely and obtain their license. You may have up to 40, 50 different clients as a car driver trainer, or new students every day as a heavy vehicle trainer. So you may have a few new students every day or one new student every day as a heavy vehicle trainer. And each student at different levels of ability, all aiming towards the same goal of obtaining a license. So as it says there, as a car driving instructor, you could have up to 40, 50 different clients on your book at any one time. They're all trying to be, they're all relying on you to make them a safe driver who will successfully get their license. As a heavy vehicle trainer, you may have a new client each day, 5 days a week, 48 weeks a year, so to speak, or 6 days a week, 48 weeks a year. And all those different students, regardless of being car or truck, are all going to present at different levels of ability. And you're going to be informally putting together what it takes to get those people to be safe drivers and get their license. And likewise for our TAE students, you think about it, whether you're training in a workplace or general public, you're going to have people present to you with lots of different abilities, lots of different skill sets, lots of different educational and cultural backgrounds and all that sort of stuff. And you're going to maybe train them to be able to use particular machinery or to be able to enter and work in a workplace safely. And all that could be attached to informal learning programs. You may have little to no paperwork on each student and just deliver your information according to memory or whatever you or your student believes are the priorities in relation to their goals. So this is a very informal approach to training, and that's obviously going back to especially the car driving instructor. Lots of different clients, all wanting to, at different levels, all aiming to become safe drivers, obtaining a license. You may not actually keep much paperwork for them. You just deliver the information according to what you understand. You remember that last week you taught Mary reverse parking. This week you're going to teach her 3-point turns. The following week you're going to go, do some practice routes and get her ready, making sure she's doing all the mirror checks and giving way and indicating correctly. But because you've got a strong understanding of the drive test criteria, you just kind of teach her that off the top of your head on the fly. That's a very informal approach to training. You're not got training records. You haven't got a clear learning program defined. It's just something in your head. So either way, your students embark on a journey with you and they leave you with more knowledge than they began with. we're going with, sorry. So all those students receive similar information. They're all a part of a mini one-to-one learning programs that is not nationally recognised. It's not a nationally recognised workplace qualification. Yeah, so they're getting ready for their license. They're not coming out with a certificate. The other type of learning programs that you may find yourself designing may be similar to what is expected of you in the assessment or assignment. So this is now relating back to really what this assessment is, and is what this unit of competence is all about. And that's that learning programs in this context relate to a vocational training program based around a unit or units of competency from an endorsed training package. So all that means is that that's someone training to get a qualification, and all the different subjects inside that qualification, they are what we call units of competence. So formal recognised training leading to the award of a qualification or statement of attainment. So remember, some courses you get a certificate and a statement of attainment, which lists all the subjects you've completed with your pass mark or whatever the case may be. Some qualifications don't even kind of really give you a certificate. You just receive a statement saying, this is what this person enrolled into and successfully completed. That's their statement of attainment. So these programs can be delivered in the workplace, in a training environment as part of a schools-based vocational education training program, or even an apprenticeship or a traineeship. This course is recognised formal training leading to the award of a nationally recognised qualification. And that's exactly what anyone who is listening to me speaking right now is doing. You are participating in recognised formal training leading to the award of a nationally recognised qualification. So no matter what environment or structure your training takes place within, one topic that you'll always have to consider is the language, literacy, and numeracy requirements of your program. So it's no good creating a learning program that requires a very strong understanding of English if your classroom is full of ESL students, what we call English second language students. And that's important, that the language associated with your qualification and course doesn't go too far beyond or beyond at all the abilities of your students. So important. So the TLI 41210 or TLI 41310 or the TLI 41216 or the TLI 41316 Certificate 4 in Transport and Logistics, Road Transport, Car or Heavy Vehicle Instruction is a nationally recognised course, or they're all nationally recognised courses leading to nationally recognised qualifications. These courses have strict government guidelines that must be followed. And when it comes to you creating your learning program using a unit of competence, you are going to adhere to any government guidelines that apply to that. If you think of a driving instructor just going around teaching people how to pass, to get ready for their driving test, there are some guidelines associated with that. However, when you compare that to the strict government guidelines that we must follow, it's a whole different scenario. Cool. So final topic now is you, the course designer. And here we have two components to the information here. We have skills of a course designer and you, the designer. So skills of a course designer. There are a lot of different skills required to be an effective course designer. It isn't easy, however, it's very rewarding. Once again, imagine how satisfying it will be when you witness your students successfully reach their goals by participating in a course that you've created. It's awesome, guys. It's a great feeling. So here on the right, we have a diagram of everything they say is required by a course designer. On the left-hand side, it says, here is a diagram from the TAEDES401 Learner Guide that outlines all the different skills a program or course designer requires. As you can see, there are a lot of different skills. You may possess these skills now. You may develop and learn them as you complete this course and move into the workplace. If you're completing our TAE course as well, then you'll definitely develop these as part of your journey. So take the time to read the information on the right here and understand each category. We will go through these, not so much in this topic, but even as we go through the second part of the presentation. So sorry on this topic, but the second presentation associated, I think we go through this in a little bit more detail. But just as we look, to be a course designer, you are going to need creativity. Because you're going to be designing something sometimes from absolute scratch. So you're going to need thinking skills. You're going to have a need to be able to interpret and analyze information and documents. So you're going to have to get units of competence. You may have to get machinery manuals or safe working manuals or policies and procedures from businesses. And you're going to have to read those materials because you may have been asked to create a course that teaches those people how to do those particular things. So it's important that you have an ability to read documents and analyze that information and decipher it. Research skills, so gather and interpret information relevant to the learning program. Of course, when you go to create something, you should look at and see what's been done before. It can provide a very important benchmark or foundation to which you can go off and design something new, or make sure that at least something that you're teaching is covering what's required, that mapping, so to speak. So to gather and interpret information relevant to the learning program using research skills is really important. Technical literacy. So that means you need to understand whatever qualification you're teaching, if it's got its own special language, its own special terminology, that you understand that you have writing skills, and that you can read and interpret information. Planning and organizational skills. So this means you need to be able to identify tasks to complete, set timelines for them, and measure your progress. As you can imagine, designing a learning program, especially from scratch when there may be nothing else to go by, is quite a complex thing. You're going to first of all be out there researching, just trying to find some sort of benchmark, reading that benchmark, learning how to understand it, and then from that, using that as a foundation of working out, well, how long is it going to actually teach me to teach something or create a course and then teach it? And as you go through those different steps, those important steps, it's going to be important that you actually attain some sort of measurement for that. Problem solving skills, obviously, is going to be important that as you go through and create programs, you're going to come across lots of different problems, whether it's client expectations, deadlines, timelines, budget restraints, the needs of the qualification, whatever the case may be. You are going to need to be able to have really good and strong problem solving skills, because as a designer, it won't always lay out in front of you easily. And again, it's an incredibly rewarding job. However, if it was something that was dead easy to do, then everyone would be doing it. And of course, that's not the situation. And hence why it is so rewarding when you get the job done, because you will, as a part of that process, I assure you, applied problem-solving skills and found answers for them. And then finally, communication skills, which obviously means that ability to listen to your clients, negotiate outcomes, collaborate with people, question both the people that you're working with or working for, and articulate your findings and your needs as a result of your designing processes. Also very important. So as stated before, there are lots of different components required to be a course designer. What percentage of each component is required by you to be good at your job is anyone's guess. What we do know, however, is that you'll need to be flexible. And that's so important to understand that, guys. Sometimes people who want to enter into the training industry don't understand how important it is to be flexible. Quite often, people that want to become trainers, and we know especially with people that want to become driver trainers, regardless of what end of the field is, because they feel like they have a really strong technical sense and that they have something to value as a trainer, that their flexibility tends to go out. So as it says here, whether it's 75% of your skills need to be creative, or 35% research, or 10% is reflective, it's completely arbitrary. I could have changed those headings or added in different headings with different numbers. It's not really a complete science. If you go back to that picture from the last screen and you went through all of those particular topics or skills required or skill sets. Are any more important than any other? You could successfully argue that they're all equally as important. But however, being flexible is really important because you're going to be working with clients, considering students, thinking about the requirements of the qualification or the workplace or the job function. And all those things need to be melded in by you into an effective, informative, interesting learning program. And to be able to do that, you're going to have to be flexible. So here's a quick overview of each component. Research. You will need to have an ability to research benchmarks, learning and assessment materials, qualifications, industry job roles, and whatever else you require to create a great program or course. You're going to need those listening skills. So you'll be required to listen to your client, hear what they have to say and what they believe they require. And especially that's so important during those initial stages and also further negotiations. Obviously, the ability to communicate. You'll need to communicate with your clients effectively. You'll need to ask questions, explain the findings of your research, and articulate your plans, which will help you justify your costs. You'll need to be able to negotiate. You'll need to negotiate. Almost every course you create will require some form of compromise from either you or your client. Effective negotiating skills will be very important. It is part of the all-important flexibility that we've previously mentioned. You need to speak with your clients without upsetting or offending them. You'll need to innovate. So you'll need to communicate with your clients effectively. You need to ask questions, explain the findings of your research, and articulate your plans to justify your costs. You're going to need to, as you hear what they have to say, be able to take that information and go out and think of innovative ways to take that information and give it back to them, really, and create an environment where your students feel like they're being a part of an innovative process, which really raises energy levels, gets what we call buy-in from your students, gets them on with you, wanting to take the journey of learning with you. And that tends to work best or happen when you facilitate in an innovative environment by being innovative in your approach to designing your program. Create. You'll need to apply the above, then create great learning programs that will be enjoyable, achievable, and rewarding for your clients and students. Reflect. You'll need to reflect on your performance constantly through the process, during the planning, creating, implementing, and feedback stages. And that's important. Quite often, sometimes you'll hear us talking about reflecting on what you've done. And that can quite often refer to, and even like we did a little bit before, refer to an ability to reflect at the end of the course. But really, if you're going to design and develop a program, then you need to reflect on your ability to plan. You'll need to be your ability to reflect on what you've created. And then when it comes to implementing and running the course or program, you're going to need to be able to reflect on that. But it's so important that you actually reflect on your performance and what you have done and what you've achieved in the early stages of designing and developing a learning program. Because if you're not reflecting on how you've planned this, how you've created it, and how you plan to implement it, then it could fall over before you even get up on the first day to start teaching. Or more importantly, it may mean that on the first day that you get up to teach something, you are going to fail because you never reflected enough through the early stages to ensure that you've actually created something that's going to be great. So this area can be exciting yet terrifying, exhilarating yet demanding. A good designer will ensure their work is not becoming stale and that it suits the requirements of the client's brief. And that's it, guys. I'm hoping that this Prezi has allowed you to get a better understanding of what's required. Again, feel free to go through this Prezi at your own pace. 4 main topics. We had a look at the introduction, so a bit of a simple overview of what designing, developing a learning program is. We had a quick overview of the assessment, but like I say, always go to the assessment walkthrough video for your detailed explanation of what's required. We've had a look at what a learning program is in 2 parts. And we've also looked at you, the person designing and developing a learning program, what that's about in a brief, and I guess in a brief overview as well. So as you move into the second presentation, we'll explore some of these topics and subtopics in greater detail. Like I said right from the start, enjoy the journey. I'm sure you will. And it is a very, as it says on that second last slide or last slide, it's demanding yet rewarding. It can be scary, yet it's very exhilarating. I hope you've enjoyed it. Guys, feel free to contact your support trainer for any help post this event. Thank you and good night.
Hi, this is Jess from ITS. Thanks for watching. If you disliked this video, well, you know where that button is. But if you liked it, hit that like button at the bottom of your screen, get subscribed, and consider giving us a comment and a thumbs up on Facebook. Your efforts do a lot for our business.